Hey everybody, this is Ash for iPoker VIP Coaching and welcome to PLO 2K12. This series will be a two-part session review starting with the fundamentals. In this part, I will go beyond the basics and I will give you an insight into my game plan for my current limits, which is PLO 50 to PLO 200. You will learn about the skill set that you will need to become a reg yourself at those limits, and I will also show you how you can open up your game so that you can boost your own win rate and hopefully stop playing ABC poker. In part number 2, we want to elevate our game to the next level. I will talk about trends and tendencies, or possible trends and tendencies in 2012. The games are already getting tougher and more aggressive, and I want to show you how you can adapt to them. And I will review here some exploits that I saw regulars using against me where I felt exploited, and I tried to incorporate these alternative lines into my game. And we will see if I've been successful with it or not. After each reviewed hand in this video series, we will have a quick learning. I will make a quick recap, and in the spirit of the new year, we will also write down a resolution, so hopefully we can learn from it a bit better. So, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's get started. So let's start with hand number 1. We're gonna start it off slow and move on to the more sicker hands later on. So let's see what happens. It gets folded to me. I have Queen 9, 5, 5 double suited in the cutoff. Definitely playable on the button, but most of the time on the cutoff, if I have strong regulars on the button, I would consider folding it because the hand is just very bad. The double suitedness is good for us, but the hand is not connected well and the pair is very low. In this situation, I decided to open it because the button is a very tight regular. He's just playing 17-13, so I think he won't come into my way very often. And I just want to play a pot in position against one of the fishes, against the loose fishes. One is playing 46-17 in the small blind, and the other one in the big blind is playing 53-18, so that's the reason why I open it. So the big blind calls in, the small and folded, big blind calls in, and the flop comes down ace 5-7. Flush draw is out, and I flop bottom set, which is very nice always, of course. The big blind checks to me, and I continuation bet here normally. I continuation bet here a bit bigger than usual, because first of all, the board is very wet, and we started the hand with, I think, 130 big blinds, which is just a bit deeper, but I already want to build the pot now because I can't overbet the pot at any point since it's pot limit Omaha, but you should know this by now. Surprisingly, I get check raised, and the big blind is a very tight player. He has an aggression factor of 1 over almost 1k hands, and he's just check raising 7% on the flop. And from my experience, he's just check raising very, very strong hands here. So he could have a pair of aces or a pair of sevens in his hand, so I could be oversetted and I'm crushed. He could check raise 6-8 of club type hands where he would have an open-ended straight draw plus a flush draw, or the same with 4-6, 4-6-9, hands like this. So against these hands, I'm really crushed, and I'm probably a 20-80 underdog. What I want to notice is he's check raising very small. He's not check raising the pot. A pot size check raise would be to 21. But this shouldn't mislead me. I think he just wants to fish me in the pot and wants me to give him a weaker range and probably try to re-raise him off his hand. But I think repotting here and getting it in is out of the question because, like I mentioned already before, I'm very crushed against his getting in range, and I'm only ahead against hands like a7 or the king high flush draw, but against the whole range, I'm a very big underdog, most likely. I think folding is a bit too weak since we have position first of all, and the bottom set. So we're just trying to play our position as best as possible. I won't represent any flush draw if it comes on the turn against him, but I would probably bluff a flush card on the river if he decides to check, if it comes down. So let's see what happens. So I called in this case, and the flush card comes, and surprisingly he checks. So he still could have the 6-8 of clubs and goes into call down mode if I start barreling here 2 times, or if he has a set of aces or a set of sevens, he also might decide to go into call down mode. I'm not sure if he would check call a set of aces and fold it if he doesn't improve to a full house on the river, because he goes to showdown quite a lot with 34%. So I won't go here for the double barrel against him, since I don't have enough information right now. If he would have bet the turn, I would have instantly mucked probably, because against his whole range, especially against a check raising range on the flop, I'm probably crushed now. And it's not sure if he will just check fold a top set of aces if he doesn't improve on the river. So it would be better for me if he would if I could have bluffed the flush card on the river, because like this I have just to invest 2 barrels, and I think that's just wasting money in this case. So I check it behind. The river brings another flush card, so it gets more unlikely that he had the king high flush draw in his hand, but he can still have 6-8, which he should definitely lead out now. Once he checks, he could still have the aces or the pair of sevens or even a7. But like I already mentioned, I'm not sure if you're gonna fold a set of aces now, or any set, since I didn't bet the turn and it's hard for me to have a flush here. So he checks, I check behind, and we see his hand. He had a set of aces. So to recap hand number 1 real quick, we flopped the bottom set and we got check raised by a very tight player. And the first thing that we want to learn from here is that we shouldn't overplay our made hands in very high stack to pot ratio situation. The stack to pot ratio in this hand was almost 20, so that's kinda much, and we just had bottom set. And the reason is because we could already be behind against a bigger set where we are a significant underdog with just 2 outs, or if he has a drawing hand, he might still be ahead, or we just have a flip, because strong combo draws are most of the time a slight favorite against sets. I put it already into Pro Poker Tools. The board was a7, 5, 2 clubs out, and we had a set of 5s. And if he just has the 6-8 of clubs, what you can see here, 6-8-9 or 4-6-3 of clubs, he's ahead against our set already, like 55%. And if we have a look at his total range with aces, sevens, the same hand, 6-8 of clubs, 4-6-3 of clubs, and I also put in top 2 pair with a gutter, a7, 8-9, and a single nut flush draw to the king. He still has 83% equity against our whole hand. So if I would even take out the last 2 hands, he probably has like 90, 95%. So we don't want to stack off in this situation. So our resolution for this hand is I will stop overplaying my sets and always consider the get it in range, especially if it's against a tight player, because he just has a very, very strong get it in range, and we don't want to stack here off 400 big blinds or more. The next hand is kind of similar to the first. So it gets folded around to me again. I'm on the button. I have ace, deuce, 3, 5 single suited, so it's good connected, and I have a nut flush draw. So it should be a standard open for everyone. As always, 3 times the big blind. And the big blind comes in. The flop comes 8, 4, 3, 2 hearts. I have bottom pair, and I have an open-ended straight draw, several gut shots. I'm blocked though since the flush draw is out, but if it gets checked to me, I will continuation bet here again. And I'm just happy to take it down, to be honest. I get check raised here again, so similar situation like before. So what are my options? Again, getting it in here with an kind of bad draw on a flush draw board is way too much. I could already fold, to be honest. But he looked a bit aggressive. He has 6.0. He could be check raising here, right? I have still position, but what was important for me to call in here, I will call then, is that he has a went to showdown of 11. So I think he is very, very tight and nitty. And once the board changes, he will just give it up. So first of all, if I hit my hand, I will just value bet normally. And if the board changes, like something scary comes down, like a straight is possible or a flush is possible, I would attack it on turn or either river if he lets me, or if he shows some weakness. If you just call in here to hit your hand itself and don't want to bluff scare cards, then I can't recommend calling here at all. Then you should just be folding, because you're giving up a lot of EV and your hands are just not coming down as often as you want. So you should call here with the intention of taking down the turn on either the taking down the pot on either the turn or the river if the scare card comes down. So I call his check raise, which is not the pot, but that's not so important here. And a 7 comes, so a 5-6 would complete now. If he has a set, he is probably check calling. If he's betting, I can give up because he won't be folding his set of 8s if I shove over it. So fortunately he checks. Now, like I said already, it's a good situation to take down the pot, and I bet 30 into 40, and so I keep myself 50 for the river. If it doesn't pair, I will fire here always. And he check calls, so it just strengthens my read that he might have a set of 8s here. I don't think that he has a flush draw now if once he check calls it, because he would just continue betting with his flush draw probably and keep semi-bluffing with an aggression factor of 6.0. The river comes the heart. If he donks out, I will give him credit for the hearts. It's probably weirdly played. It doesn't fit my read, but what can I do? I have a pair of 3s here. But I think he will check here most of the time, and he does, and I can shove in my last 50 into 100. He has very, very good odds to call, to be honest, but basically everything connected. The straight is out, or several straights are out, and the flush is out, the obvious draw, what I can definitely have in position. My 2 of hearts doesn't help me at all. It's not blocking anything, but I think this is a very profitable situation against people who are just very, very tight, or not tight, just very nitty going to showdown. And with someone who has a showdown went to showdown of 11, you can definitely bluff a lot of scare cards on turn or river and just take it down for 100 big blinds play. Okay, so this time we get check raised again on the flop, but the villain was very, very nitty. He just had a went to showdown of 11. A normal went to showdown of regulars on these limits is around 22 to 25, and what we want to do is we want to attack these players with this very, very low went to showdown on scary boards or potential scary boards. So if the board can change into if a flush can come off or a straight can come off at the same time, this is just very, very good for us. And if we are in position, we want to keep attacking these boards. Make sure that you don't give up your position. That's why we are playing it. And it's also very helpful that you have some equity yourself in these hands. You can pure bluff these spots, but I would recommend at the beginning to keep some equity. We had some open-ended straight draws and gut shots ourselves. So my resolution for hand number 2 is I will abuse my position and keep bluffing nits off their hands. Okay, hand number 3 is played on PLO 200. As you can see, there are still a lot of fishy players on PLO 200, like a 74-36 here or a 58-6 in the small blind. It gets folded around to the cutoff, who opens it up normally 3 times the big blinds. He's raising 36% of his hands, so he has a very, very wide range here. The small blind calls in as well, and I decided to go for the squeeze. I squeeze here the pot, and I think it's a very good play because 5, 6, 7, 8 just flops very good and plays easier in a low stack to pot ratio situation, especially out of position. And it gives me another benefit. These people or these players will put me on aces or kings or very high rundowns very often. So if an ace peels off, it's very likely that I can take down the pot with a continuation bet. So I squeeze it up here. I expect them both to call, and they should call, especially the play in position. The only reason to fold here is if you play from the small blind and you have a pair in your hand and you just don't want to play out of position. But both players come in and the flop comes 8-6-6, a dream flop. I have basically the nuts, only a pair of 8s beats me. So it gets checked to me. My perceived range here is still aces and kings, even though I'm betting, and on paired boards I like to bet half the pot. Against these fish, I wanted to make sure that they stay in, and I don't have reason to balance, so I don't have to necessarily bet here 36, so I went with 30, so even less than half the pot. I wanted to make sure that one player calls in or tries to float me, or maybe even tries to make a move on me on the flop so I can get it in already. The original raiser, he just calls in, and surprisingly the small blind calls in as well. So I wanted to have 2 customers, now I have 2. It's a very good result for me. So what are the ranges? It's very likely still that one could be slow playing a 6 or a full house of 8s. A 6 should normally raise in these situations, but if he has 8-6 himself or 6s with overcards, he might just slow down because these people don't look so aggressive. It's very likely that they have overpairs, or most of the time they have something like 5, 7, 8 or 7, 8, 9 in their hand, or gut shots. So the 10 peels off, which is a very, very good hand for me. Like I said, I wanted them to stay in with their dominated draws. If they were drawing to a straight, if someone had 7, 9, he has now a straight and probably can feel very good against me at least. The problem is we have 3 players here now, so I have to see how they react first. It gets checked to me and I pot it out here, which is, I think, the worst of all my options. Once I pot out here, I'm basically telling them that I'm going nowhere, but I probably don't have aces anymore in these spots. I mean, they can put me on aces and might think I'm just going for a steal here and just stick it in because the pot is already big, and they can still call in with 7-9 or something. But let's say this guy has 7-9 and it's very hard for him now to call, even though he has fishy stats. I think he's not stacking off as light as I would want it, because the player in the small blind, like I mentioned, he could have the pair of 8s in his hand, or something like 8-6 or 10-8, 7-9, so he has even a better full house now than me, or a pair of 10s. So I think by betting out myself, I'm just isolating myself too often against stronger hands. That's why I don't like the bet in this spot. If they have nothing, they will just fold. I didn't give them the opportunity to float me and just take it down on a turn with a bet of 80 or 110. By betting out myself, I'm taking away all these options from the 2 other players, and that's why I don't like my bet here at all. The cutoff folds, which could mean he could have random bluffs. He could fold even 7-9 here because one player is still behind. But yeah, it's just a shame if I fold out all the random bluffs that he could have, or floats. The small blind calls in now. And once he calls, I don't really feel very good here. He can have 7-9. That would be the best scenario. But most of the time, he will either have a 6, which has me already beat, like 6-10, or we're splitting with 6-8, which is kind of unlikely, or he has redraws, which is also fine. But most of the time, I just have the impression that they are just slow playing a pair of 8s in the hands, and I'm totally crushed. River comes in at the 8, so they can't have quad since I have one, and we can see now that I sucked out on the river. I made a bigger full house. So if we go back to the turn, as you can see, by potting out myself, I just fold out all the bluffs and the floats and don't give them a chance to stick around with weaker holdings, and just isolate myself against stronger hands. And basically I sucked out big time because I was a 5% underdog on the turn, and luckily sucked out on the river. So we just saw that I made a very big mistake in hand number 3. I still want the pot, but we don't want to be results oriented. What is important for us is where we played the hand good and where we played it bad. Pre-flop, I squeezed it with my 5, 6, 7, 8 single suited. We definitely want to 3-bet a wider range for deception. We don't want that they will put us on aces and kings most of the time. And if you really just 3-bet aces and kings, we are just very, very easy to play. So make sure to widen your 3-bet range, especially in position, because you will be harder to play against. And also you can play for bigger pots and take down pots easier on the flop if an ace peels off and you just continuation bet. So what happened? We flopped very, very good, and as I mentioned, our perceived range, the perceived range is what they think we might hold in our hand, was very aces heavy and very kings heavy, and maybe high rundowns which completely miss the 8-6-6 flop, especially once I continuation bet here very, very weak. So they will think I have a very weak perceived range which can't continue on the turn. So I betted out the turn, which is just a very big mistake in my eyes in this scenario. So we should give up the betting lead if our perceived range is just very, very weak. You have to see it from their perspective. If we really have aces here and it's 8, 6, 6, 10, there's just a lot that beats us, and we should check here. They can put in their the last pot size bet, and we have to fold here most of the time with aces. But instead, I decided to bet myself, which is just very bad because we didn't give those bluffs or made hands now like a straight or a 6 a chance to bet again. And we just isolated ourselves. So my resolution for this hand is I will think it over before I isolate myself against a strong range again. So make sure that if you have a weak perceived range and there's a chance that your opponents might attack this board, and you don't really have to protect your hand because we're already very, very strong. Give them an opportunity to bluff, or give them a chance to value bet their dominated hands. Next hand is again on PLO 200, and this time we will play out of position. First position limps in, and a fish on the cutoff just min raises. The button calls in. As you can see, they are all very, very loose. So I just play my hand to flop something strong like the nut flush draw or the nut straight. And I think it's just a very good opportunity to play a hand with 1, 2, 3, and probably 4 fish, although we will be out of position, and it's still very, very cheap. So I call in as well. The big blind calls in, and the original limper calls in as well. So I hit the pair, and I have the nut flush draw. So I have several options here. I could check to the original raiser and check raise and try to get it in just because of pure equity. I could lead it out now and try to build a bigger pot for future AV, and maybe I can even take it down if someone else is drawing, and I just keep on the aggression. But yeah, I decided to check here. It's a lot of people and I'm out of position, and I really didn't play it so much with these people, and it could just be that they would just call me down very, very light, let's say with a single queen, and just call me down with some random two pair, which I don't want. They seem all very, very fishy, not so strongly throwdown bound except the original limper. But I decided to check here and follow the action. A lot can happen here because we are 5 people to the pot. So I check, big blind checks, and the min raiser didn't decide to continuation bet against for other people, and the button checks as well. On the turn, a king comes. I still have the same pair, but now I add a gut shot to my nut flush draw. Again, same options almost like before. I could lead it out, but it's even harder now to bet someone off. Like, let's say if he made like king 6, or if he has king queen, it's very hard to get him off his hand. So I decided to check. The big blind checks, and now the original limper just bets $10 into 20, which is very, very weak in my opinion. It could be that he has some random two pair like 6 deuce, but this would already be very strong. So I assume he might be drawing himself, or he has something like ace king jack, or maybe just jack 10. Something just very weak, but if he would have king queen, I think I would assume, or a set, that he would bet bigger here. At least like 15 or 17. The original min raiser, he calls in, so he can't have a set as well. I don't think he has king queen. That's why I decided to not just call in, because if I call in, I have the same weak perceived range like the others. I decided to raise the pot here. And try to represent a set or king queen myself. If I have king queen here, would definitely be a good spot to check raise. No one showed strength yet, and it would just be good to take down the hand or get some value out of draws. So they have to give me credit now for a very strong hand. I can have a set of kings, I can still have a set of queens, or just king queen, which is most of the time enough in these spots. So the better just calls in, which gives me the information that he doesn't have a set. It just strengthens my original read that he doesn't have king queen. He might have a flush draw himself, or jack 10, or something like 6 deuce maybe, where he doesn't feel so well, or just ace king jack 10, something like this. The min raiser, he decided to fold, and yeah, the river pairs. So I was representing a very strong hand on the turn, and I should just keep betting here because I don't think that I can win the hand at showdown. And I represented at least king queen, or a set of kings or a set of queens, so I would have a full house now, and I bet it out 81 into 150. It's just a very, very cheap bluff for me, because it's just very good that the board paired. If he has 6 deuce, he will call, that's for sure. So it makes really no difference if I bet 81 or I pot it here. I just save way more money in the long run. If he has a bluff, he will. If he was drawing to like jack 10 or to the flush draw, everything missed. And it makes no difference if I bet 81 or 150. I don't know if he would call with 6 deuce if I bet here out 150, but most of the time a player with 33% went to showdown we just call. So I think a smaller bet around half the pot has the same effect like a pot size bet in this situation. I don't think he would call me here loose like with something like ace king, because I'm clearly representing a strong hand, and this should be a very profitable situation for us. So he decided to fold, which is a very, very good result. I just wanted to show you how you can play your draws aggressive as well. You don't have to play it passive, especially if you're out of position. And this is just a very good example on how to turn up the aggression and keep on betting by representing a very, very strong hand. So what were the key points in hand number 4? First of all, we called in cheap pre-flop to play against a lot of fish. 3 people were already in the hand. The big blind was also very, very loose, and it was just a min raise. So our hand, it wasn't the best hand, but it had some nut potential, and I think even though we're playing out of position the whole hand, we are probably still playing better than the fish, and it's just worth to enter hand against them. Another point was that no one showed strength. One limper bet half the pot on the turn, and the original raiser just called in. So this gave us the read that they are both very strong. We had a draw ourselves, and it was just a good opportunity to semi-bluff here, because if we just call in, we have the same weak range like them, and we don't have a chance anymore to take down the pot if we don't hit our hand. We had a gut shot and a nut flush draw, which was 13 outs on the turn, which means 26% of the time we will hit our hand. But if we hit it, it doesn't mean that we will be able to stack off here or get additional value out of other hands. So in case we don't hit our hands, we had the chance to just take it down by betting again on the river. And this is what we did. The river paired, and if your opponent's range is inelastic, you should go for the smaller bet size. Inelastic means it doesn't make a difference for him if you bet 80, 100 or 150, because we gave him a weak range. He doesn't have enough to call here most of the time, so 81 a bet of 81 into 150 will be the same like 150 into 150. Sometimes he will spike the 6 here and might call you if you just bet 81, but fold if you bet 150. But the majority of his range, we can assume that he was drawing himself, so a bet of 81 was enough to take it down this time. So always think it over how much you want to bet if you have a bluff. And my resolution for hand number 4 is I will look for good semi-bluff spots and keep barreling aggressively. Now we're going to take a look at the hand that a lot of people have problems with, mediocre aces out of position. We play PLO 100 this time, and it gets checked around to the button who decides to pot it. Small blind comes in as well, and now I have the options on me. Folding is of course out of the question. Now we have a decision to make if we should raise it here or just call in. I would prefer calling in because I don't really want to bloat the pot with my aces, and I don't want that they put me on aces, so I think it's a very, very bad spot to squeeze it here. The only argument for squeezing is that once we pot it here to 14, and both people call in, the stack to pot ratio will be very, very low. It will be just around 2, and that's just very good if you're playing out of position with one pair type of hand. But I would prefer calling. Unfortunately, I squeezed here to make the play easier for me, which is fine, but I don't like it as much as calling in. So I squeezed it here, and as mentioned before, the pot is around 40, the stack to pot ratio is just 2, and we have a lot of options here. We can pot it out ourselves and just get it in if someone has a hand, and just play by equities. We can check, hoping for someone to bet or for the button to bet, and check raise him here. So these are our options. The small blind checks. I would prefer not to just pot it out and just end the hand here. Then I don't have more decisions, but somehow I decided to check, hoping most likely that the button will bet, and he bets here out 1/4 of the pot. So this can mean he's either very, very strong, like top set, or he's just trying to steal it very, very cheap. I don't want to isolate myself yet, so I decided to call in because I have the overpair and I can still make something close to the nuts if a 3 peels off. A 7 of hearts is a very, very good card, so if he had a 7, it's just more unlikely now that he has a 7 in his hand. If he has deuce 4, I have now a better 2 pair, and also I add a flush draw if I'm behind somehow. I was showing weakness on the flop. That's why I decided to go with weakness again on the turn. So I check to him. He bets again very, very small. So, but this time I don't think that he has a 7. I don't think that he has trips. He can have a full house or something, but still, I think it's very likely that he's very, very weak here again. So the best play would be to call, of course. I went for the check raise here. Again, I make the move which makes the hand the easiest to play, but it's just a very bad line if he really has nothing. I isolate myself again if he has a 7. I don't think that a lot of way worse hands than a 7 or a full house will call me here. If he has kings or queens, I will make him fold. If he has a flush draw, I will probably make him fold. And I just isolate myself again. But what I want to talk about is I choose both of the times the easiest play for my hand, but the easiest play is most of the time not the most profitable hand. So in this case, he folded. I take down the pot. I ended already on the turn, but I really didn't give so much thought. I was just playing my hand, and this is basically level 1, and I didn't thought about what my opponent could hand, and I think this hand was just misplayed on almost every street. Hand number 5 was just played down very terrible in my eyes, but let's try to learn from our mistakes. So what we can do is we can call in with mediocre aces out of position. What this makes is if we 3-bet aces out of position, the perceived range is anyway aces. So if an ace peels off, we'll get a lot of credit, and they will most likely just fold if they don't have a good draw to go with it. So this is what we don't want. If we just call it in, it's very, very hard for them to put us on aces. And if they have an ace themselves or something like top 2 pair on a, let's say, ace 10 3 board, they are more likely to stack off since they are fish anyway. Another thing is, again, I don't want to isolate myself against a very strong range, and by the check raise on the turn, this is all I'm doing. I am most likely not keeping dominated flush draws in or weaker pairs. I didn't give him the chance to bet his kings again on the river if he tries to make a value bet or tries to represent a 7. And the worst is probably that I went for the easiest play on almost every street, but the easiest play is not always the most plus EV play. I went for the squeeze pre-flop with the aces that I create a low stack to pot ratio out of position, and I went for the check raise on the turn just to end my hand. I was like, okay, fuck it, I will check raise it. If he calls me, I'm probably behind, but I have all my flush draw outs. Most likely I have aces if he has already a full, or I can make a straight if he has a 7 as well. So I went for the easiest play, and I really don't like it because you're just playing your hand basically. It's the same like if you would play no limit hold'em and just shove aces every time you have them, because I don't know, you don't want to confront yourself with a decision on the flop. So my resolution for hand number 5 is I won't go for the easier play if it's not necessary, and against fish it's most of the time not necessary, and you have your edge by playing pots against them and not just going all in based on your equity. So we're now at the last hand of this video. This time we're playing a 3-bet pot again, but without initiative and out of position. So we play PLO 100, it gets folded to us. We have Queen, Queen, 9-9, standard open, I think. Gets folded around to the button, who 3-bets me here. He 3-bets the pot, which is very standard for him. Played a lot of hands with this guy, 5k hands already. He's a good regular, I would say. very aggressive, and definitely knows how to play position. So once he 3-bets me here, I would assume he has aces, kings, a lot of double suited hands, and rundown starting probably at 7-8 or 6-7, 6-7, 8-9, 10, something like this. So the big blind calls in as well. It's a fish. He plays 80% of his hands, so I don't think he's in big trouble, but he can have anything. So I call in just to play a pot, try to outflop the regular, the 3-better, and I will try to attack boards which doesn't hit his range. So deuce 5-6, a perfect flop to attack. The big blind checks to me, so I have my options here. Now I could lead it out. I could bet 30 and bet again the turn. And this is probably the best option because it's just cheap. The problem is it's cheaper than check raising. This is what I wanted to say. The problem is I don't know what Jay is gonna do. I don't have the information yet. It could be that he's trapping as well. He is very, very passive, 0.9, but still, if he calls me here, I really don't know what to do. If I can value bet my queens, and I would probably try to either hit a set or try to get the showdown cheap, which is not really possible because he has a stack to pot ratio of 2. I am not really afraid of Heinrich Monte because I think this doesn't hit his 3-betting range very well. Just if he 3-bets something like a double pair, like 8-8, 6-6 or something like this. I don't think he has 3-4 somehow in his hand. Only if he 3-bet ace, deuce, 3-4, double suited. It's likely, but most of the time he's just calling these hands. So I want to check. I'm hoping that the button will bet and I can check raise in case the big blind folds. So I check here. Unfortunately, the button checks as well. And the turn brings the deuce, which pairs the board. Once the big blind checks again, I don't think that he connected anyhow to the flop. He's not trying to trap anymore. He doesn't have a flush draw, he doesn't have a deuce, and he doesn't have 3-4 as he would have let it out. My option here is now I can bet it myself. I can bet 30 here, but what I don't like is me and the button played a lot together. I could have a deuce, I could have 3-4, but it's just very unlikely. It will look to him like I'm trying to steal the pot, and I don't want that he floats me here with a hard draw or with aces, and on the river, once the pot is already very big, he decides to stack off or call me down with aces or kings because he has 2 pair and he beats a lot of my hands. So I check again, and this time I'm really just hoping that he's betting it out. I could imagine that he's betting here a pair of aces or a pair of kings just for value and to protect against hearts. He doesn't have to fear that someone has 3-4, I guess, because he would just already bet it out on the turn. And he bets it here, a standard 2/3 of the pot. He could have a deuce, but like I said, he was 3-betting, so it's very, very unlikely. But what he can have is it's aces, it's kings, and all the rundowns like king, queen, jack 10, 9, 8. I don't think he has 7, 8, 9 or something in this direction, because probably it would be a good chance for him to bet on the flop with an open-ended straight draw, since the stack to pot ratio is already very low. So once the big blind folds, it's a very good chance for me to just try to bluff him off his hand. And this is what I do. I check raise him here. Yes, I'm isolating myself against the deuce, but it's still very hard for him to call if he just has a single deuce. If he has 3-4, which is unlikely, like I already mentioned, he would have betted on the flop. I'm crushed, but I still have 4 outs to make a full house. If he has aces and kings, it's just very hard for him to stack off after check raise. I invest the same amount of money like if I would have bet the turn or donked the turn and put in the rest on the river, whatever card comes. But right now it's just harder for him to call me with aces or kings. His rundowns he will fold, of course, instantly. But it's just hard for him to call me down with overpairs because I just look here very, very strong. And he could be already beat. So he folds here. It's a very good result for us. And we take down the pot. So what can we learn from the last hand? I called 3-bet out of position with the hand that can hit a lot of flops. I had 2 queens and 2 nines, so I could make 2 kinds of sets. It can make a straight, and it can also hit a kind of good flush draw in a 3-bet pot, which is fine. If we were just heads up and I would have a bit worse of a hand like queen, queen, 8, 9, I would tend to fold or 4-bet my hand in some scenarios, but most of the time I would just fold because I just don't want to flop just for set value most of the time, and it's just hard to play a bigger pot out of position against a decent regular. Once we call in, we try to outflop him, of course, or if this is not possible, we want to attack scary boards like this one. A low straight was possible. It didn't hit his range very, very much, so it was just good to attack. Once the scare board comes down, it's on us to decide which play has the most fold equity. The turn paired the board, so I thought that by donking out the turn, it's very likely that I will fold out all his rundowns, but it's also likely on the other hand that he will stay in with aces or kings and sometimes might just call me down on the river if he feels his 2-pair might be good. That's why I went for the check raise, because in this scenario, I probably invested the same, my whole stack, like if I would have donked it twice. But I just thought it has the most fold equity in this spot. I had queens myself, so I had 2-pair, but I think it's I'm not isolating myself here against a stronger range because he just didn't showed any strength before, and I just don't want to play my hand because I have just don't want to play my 2-pair and call him down, because I don't think that against his 3-betting range I'm any good here most of the time. So my resolution for 2K12 in the last hand is I will always trust my read and keep attacking regulars. Okay, so that was it. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment in the comment section below. I will try to answer you as soon as possible. Also, if you have feedback on the format, if you like it or didn't, just make sure to drop me a line and I will try to make it better for next time. Also, make sure to tune in for part number 2 when we're gonna look at trends and tendencies for PLO in 2012. I will make another session review and try to predict what's upcoming in this year. Okay, so thanks for watching. This is Ash for iPoker VIP coaching, and see you at the PLO tables.